So I ended up pulling an all-nighter today, during which I spent quite a bit of time working on the 99 Dan Hamming. I'm currently at the point where I'm trying to I ultimately decided to have there be a scene between Ginger and Kent, along with at least a brief voice cameo of Kate. Thing is, in order to space out the time between the appearance of Dan Hamming and Dan Hamming walking onto this scene, the thing is, that currently requires me to reconstruct a scene from the last Dan Hamming episode. Dan Hamming does karaoke. Which I'm currently in the process of. Current results show that it is indeed possible, but obviously some more work is required. Gained 600 spell fragments. Prior to me finding that a tournament started, I already did some Spire encounters, because it is impressive to see that you deal with problems in different ways. Changing of seasons always brings opportunistic creatures out of their slumber. Can you show us how you deal with that? I have 515 candies with which to potentially get the Carnival Choreography. Graceful dancers in colorful costumes, drums, and trumpets accompanying the spectacle. This one, out of all the chests, has the best chance of giving me the daily exclusive, which is something I don't yet have. Though it has a pretty high chance of giving me 14 knowledge points. It gave me a 20-pack of ancient knowledge. It ultimately got me in the running to get a 100% coin rain, which will give you the exact storage capacity of coins. Alright, I got it. I'm grateful for that. Generally speaking, I always try to collect each unique daily exclusive that's a building. That's my general policy when it comes to these evolvable building events. I was able to fill all of the runes for this ancient wonder, but I just don't have the room for it yet. I don't consider this ancient wonder that just gives a fraction of the culture of a normal cultural building and some ranking points to be that valuable. But I still feel a need to build it since it's a unique ancient wonder. I got this banana cream pie at lunchtime too, along with some cookies and milk, some jasmine sticky rice, some Korean beef, and some mashed cauliflower, along with another one of these yogurts. Early into the all-nighter, I ate the can of cheddar cheese Pringles. And then later into the all-nighter, and as I was staying awake for my African politics and intermediate Spanish 2 classes, which came pretty much one after another, for the most part, I ate most of the can of wavy barbecue Pringles. In between that, I had a mixed fruit breakfast bar because my dad recommended that to me. It turns out I made a mistake yesterday. It's not a strawberry box of breakfast bars, it's a blueberry box. I fell asleep around 2 p.m. today, waking up around 7 p.m., giving me not that much time to go and get breakfast. Seriously enough, I found this screw after kind of sliding my laptop to move it to an area where I think it would be better able to stay cool. It's recommended that you keep your laptop on a hard surface because the ventilators are able to work better on a hard surface rather than a soft surface. I think it's because a soft surface will be able to better get into the nooks and crannies of the ventilation systems. Thus making them less effective, thus making your laptop more likely to overheat. I wrote these coordinates down with a Sharpie marker so that I would remember the exact position of a prop that I curated from Beat the Boss 3. But the thing is, despite making most of I curated it by taking a screenshot and I made most of it transparent, but back then I didn't know about resizing the canvas on Lunapic. Excuse me. I was feeling pretty tired by the time of the Intermediate Spanish 2 class. Still managed to have a pretty good class. Though it may have contributed partially. I said in the class, estoy cansado un poco, which means I am a little tired. At some point, my professora's children could be heard, and she asked the students if they could hear her kids. And I said either, I think I likely said, yo odio tus hijos, which literally means I hate your kids, but I meant to say I hear your kids. And I think I preceded that with a C. I think that happened because the Spanish verb for to hate and the Spanish verb for to hear are similarly spelt. If I recall correctly, they both begin with an O. I'm able to, at least at this point, I'm able to speak at least a little Spanish. But I have difficulty understanding La Profesora at times. And I'd don't at this moment recall what the different Spanish verbs mean because I took my first Spanish class, beginner Spanish, back in my freshman year. It was pretty much only now in my senior year that I took my intermediate Spanish classes. Because that's how much time it took for me to regain an interest in learning Spanish. Though, between all that, I pretty much went on Duolingo every single day, but apparently, one lesson a day, often while distracted, it wasn't enough. At the end of the earlier African politics class, during which I wanted to participate, at the end, because today's topic of the lecture was on colonial Africa, I asked if the Soviet Union's satellite states and China's investments in Africa were basically more abstract forms of colonialism. Basically a sort of spiritual successor to it, though I may have caused some confusion by not wording it that way. And I think I deliberately avoided mentioning that the Soviets' satellite states included Poland, Ukraine, Hungary, and whatnot, because I knew this was based on colonial Africa, not just colonialism in general. Ese arroz es muy delicioso. I know I can learn the language. Just have to keep at it. And I just hope that rice is whole grain. The professor answered that question by stating that in particular, I had heard on it was from a YouTube video by Top 10 channel. I think it was Top 10 Scariest Maps You'll Ever See. That sort of thing. Saying that China's investments in Africa could amount to colonialism in Africa. And the professors said that basically China went from, as they switched to a market economy, they went from both both the Soviet Union and China militarily helped African countries to resist colonialism. Which in my view book is a good thing, since that ultimately meant that a lot of African countries gained their independence that way. And if it weren't for these efforts, perhaps maybe we would see more examples of colonialism, or I should say evolved colonialism, on the global stage. I in particular think of the Falkland Islands and the UK and Puerto Rico and the United States. But ultimately, it's up to the peoples of those areas to decide how they want to govern. As China developed economically, they wanted to trade more for good resources with African countries. And to that end, they built infrastructure and such within African countries, which can be seen as a good thing. And that's basically the gist of what was said. As for my art class, well, that was completely canceled, and the rest of the classes were all online. Having my Spanish class through a Zoom meeting. For lunch, I also had Chiklis Kotorski and all the classes were online, and art class was completely canceled because basically today was a snow day, and it was expected that there would be some pretty severe snowstorms. I'm currently hoping at some point to be able to find room for another granite mine. I currently meet the recommendation on copper foundries of at least 4, but I don't meet the recommendation of 10 granite mines. If 4, 5, 6, 7, I only count 7, and this 8th one, that's at level 1. Excuse me. If I'm recalling correctly, I'll be able to get one more city expansion before hitting the end of the dwarf chapter and having to transition into the fairies chapter. But yeah, I should be able to use that last city expansion onto the settlement, though that's the last research city expansion. I believe I have the potential to get a province expansion, which I'm likely to use so I can place down that Throne of the Highmen Ancient Wonder. Although, yeah, a new steel tournament recently started up at around, I would say 2. Basically, incredibly, I managed to complete 11 provinces on that first string of attacks in the tournament. Thing is, though, the first string in which you attack tournament province after tournament province until you hit one that, in my case, you think you can't beat, which, in my particular case, is when the enemy squad size is greater than my squad size, and there isn't one particular squad unit type that is at least even with every enemy squad. Though obviously I prefer to have advantages, since that makes me even more likely to win. I beat 11 provinces, getting to the 12th province before I encountered a situation like that. Though, since provinces with more stars are also going to be harder, after the first longest string, each subsequent string is likely going to be shorter than the last. And you just gotta be diligent, because it takes 16 hours for a province to refresh with the next higher star level, so the time between strings is generally around 16 to about 20 hours, depending on whether you fall asleep before the next string is ready or not.